In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
The Lord hath accomplished his fury. He hath poured out his fierce anger, and hath kindled a fire in Zion, and it hath devoured the foundations thereof. The kings of the earth and all the inhabitants of the world would not have believed that the adversary and the enemy should have entered into the gates of Jerusalem. And hath kindled a fire in Zion, and it hath devoured the foundations thereof. And hath kindled a fire in Zion, and it hath devoured the foundations thereof. And hath kindled a fire in Zion, and it hath devoured the foundations thereof.
Timothy Cardinal Dolan, Archbishop of New York. Cardinal Dolan, always good to see you, although it would be nice to see you.
Savannah, thanks. We were just together Holy Thursday morning, and we were talking about the Holy Father. And I think we were all pretty realistic to know his health was fragile, but it still was a bit of a shock, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When I was awakened at 4 this morning to say the Holy Father's died.
Well, especially when we saw him, on Easter Sunday.
Yesterday, out at the balcony, at least. You could tell he was fragile. He could barely move his arms, and even to say his Buona Pasqua, Happy Easter, was kind of strained. But then to ride around, his doctors had told him to avoid crowds. And there he is with 200,000 people riding around in the back of a Jeep, yeah.
The significance of him passing on the Easter Monday, how does that strike you?
High significance. I always say this, we can't choreograph the way we go. But if you could, this wasn't bad. So yesterday was the day that the Christian world celebrated resurrection, new life, that Jesus conquered death and shares his triumph with us. And then we wake up the next morning to hear that his representative here on earth, the Bishop of Rome, the successor of Peter, our Holy Father the Pope, had actually passed over, to borrow the word from our Jewish neighbors, from life here to life everlasting. You couldn't have choreographed it better. He was kind of into that. We know Pope St. John Paul II was a trained actor. Bergoglio, Cardinal Bergoglio, Pope Francis, was kind of like a natural. He kind of knew the power of symbols. He was very authentic. He was very sincere. He didn't want to put on a show, but it came natural to him. The hug, the kiss, the blessing, the smile. And so I think you'd almost think he had planned it, which we know he didn't. And so I think you'd almost think he had planned it, which we know he didn't.
The Pope is dead. The throne is vacant.
What happened?
They say a heart attack.
What happened?
They say a heart attack. They say a heart attack. They say a heart attack. They say a heart attack.
What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened?
They say a heart attack.
You know how rumor spreads, and 1.25 billion souls watching.
Well, Cardinal Lawrence.
It seems the responsibility for the conclave falls upon you.
Well, more than 130 cardinals are gathering in Rome this week for the start of the papal conclave.
The secretive process gets underway on Wednesday, but final preparations are underway. Today, workers installed those famous red curtains on the balcony at St. Peter's Basilica, where the new pope will emerge once elected. Mary Calvi joins us live from Vatican City with a look at the conclave process and what you can expect to see in the coming days. Mary.
Cindy and Chris. That ultra-secret process about to begin in Vatican City. The cardinals of the Catholic Church from around the world have gathered here and will enter under lock and key to begin the process of electing the next pope. The event is called the Conclave, or the event is called the Conclave, or the event is called the Conclave, or...
First of all, how are you feeling right now? That your brother
it's too unreal. I haven't had time to think about it yet because this is what it's been since it was announced. The phone calls, the texts, the emails, the iPad stuff. So it's been nonstop. So really, I haven't had a moment to think about it. But it's totally unreal, totally surreal, and it's a tremendous, tremendous thing to take in. But it's something to be very proud of.
You said you spoke to him right before Conclave?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what that conversation was like.
Really? First we do Wordle, because this is a regular thing, okay? Then we do Words with Friends. It's something to keep his mind off life in the real world. And then we talk about what's going on, and I said, well, do you have your red socks? That doesn't go over well all the time. And then just that kind of stuff, and I said, well, are you ready for this? I said, did you watch the movie Conclave so you know how to behave? And he had just finished watching the movie Conclave. I said, did you watch the movie Conclave so you know how to behave? And he had just finished watching the movie Conclave.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, drama, pageantry, and faith framing a truly history-making day here. The Catholic Church has a new pope, and he is an American. White smoke pouring from the chimney above the Sistine Chapel this evening, signaling there was a new pope. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost emerging from the conclave chosen by fellow cardinals to be pope and to lead the Catholic faith. And then appearing at St. Peter's Basilica before tens of thousands who had crowded into St. Peter's Square, introduced by his new papal name, Pope Leo XIV. His selection defying a widely held assumption that an American could never be pope. Having spent most of his life outside the United States, Pope Leo XIV celebrated tonight with deep pride in his hometown of Chicago. The cardinal electors working with surprising speed and focus as they elected Leo on the second day of the conclave, setting a new course for the Catholic Church.
Many people thought this extraordinary moment would never happen. An American, now the leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics for the first time.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
He is now known as Pope Leo XIV, but until today, he was Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost.
Yeah, for an American pope for the first time, it's really, really crazy.
We cried, we hugged, we laughed, and that's before we knew that the new pope was from the U.S. And then when that happened, we cried again.
Born in Chicago, the 69-year-old was educated at Villanova and led the Augustinian order, spending much of his life outside of the U.S., working extensively in Italy and Peru. On St. Peter's Square, we met Chicago native Denise Utter, who says she started shaking when she heard the news.
I'm an Augustinian affiliate and know his brothers and the people that he went to school with, and he will be I'm here because of him. He will be an amazing pope.
While back home, we heard from his brother, John.
It's a tremendous, tremendous thing to take in, but it's something to be very proud of. He gives the advice to us, but to him...
It's just a great, absolutely great honor.
It took 2 days to elect Pope Leo, just like his two most recent predecessors. The question now, what kind of pope will he be?
Pope Leo's brother John also telling our Chicago station that the new pope loves playing Wordle and watched the movie Conclave recently. Now the world is scrambling to learn even more about it. Here's Ann Thompson.
Vatican City, good evening.
His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. His Holiness Pope Leo XIV is a simple man.
feels he's lost touch with his people. He's become a prisoner in the palace.
Is His Holiness carrying any metal?
Leo is shielded from the very people he was appointed to serve.
I'm completely out of touch with how most people live.
Then, one day, he's given the chance to discover the world beyond the walls. When he accidentally gets locked out of the Vatican.
Anybody ever tell you you look like the Pope?
Sometimes.
How could you lose the Pope?
Now he's about to make a stand for what he believes.
What if I'm being compelled by God to do something that He wants me to do?
And about to be thrown into some surprising situations.
Why? Maybe he's a priest. No. A priest will be telling us we go to hell for this.
There's absolutely no cause for alarm.
For Leo, some of life's toughest challenges
I just wanted to be close to you.
Can only be solved by facing them man to man.
Pope Leo, huh? You're Pope Leo, yes. All of this is because you came to see me.
Tom Conti is Pope Leo XIV. Pope Leo XIV in Saving Grace.
I will be back sometime.
Be sober. Be vigilant. Because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, and tongues, and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword, and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
You may not be religious, you might not care who the next pope is, but here's the thing. Decisions made in this tiny walled city can influence policies in your own country, even your rights. This man in white can impact diplomacy, global law, and health policy. And no, you don't have to be a Catholic for that to matter. So who is the Pope really? Sure, he's the spiritual head of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, but he's much more than that. He's also the head of the state of the Vatican, a global media figure, and, for the Catholic faithful, the most influential moral authority alive. The Pope leads an institution that runs over 200,000 schools and 5,000 hospitals, which makes it the largest non-government provider of healthcare services in the world. Plus, ever heard of Caritas? The Pope also oversees that, a huge network of aid agencies, the second largest in the world after the Red Cross. It's a whole global ecosystem. And while he can't pass laws in Britain or in any other state apart from the Vatican, his influence runs through education, healthcare, diplomacy, and even voting patterns.
On day 2 of the conclave, after just 4 rounds of voting, the world's 1.4 billion Catholics have a new pope. And in a first, he's American.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
I'm so excited that he's the U.S. Pope, the first U.S. Pope.
I never thought in my life I'd see an American Pope.
There had been so much talk that the church would not be ready, the Catholics would not be ready for an American Pope, but they have certainly been proven wrong today.
Let's go through everything we know about the new leader of the Catholic Church, starting with how Cardinal Robert Prevost emerged
from behind the curtains
as Pope Leo XIV, moment by moment.
We were thinking, never American.
that just won't happen.
I think everybody's just trying to figure this out because it feels like it came out of nowhere.
Because of the 267 popes throughout history, more than 90% have been from Europe. Pope Leo XIV joins only 13 born outside of Europe and is the first ever born in North America.
Be the first American Pope. And when it comes to things like this, when it comes to these breaking news stories that the entire world happens to be talking about, Hollywood never ceases to amaze me, as they are always giving us the truth in plain sight, telling us what's going to happen ahead of time, predictive programming and things like that. So what am I talking about? Well, back in 2016, when Pope Francis was still in charge, there was a TV show that came out, a limited TV series that came out to HBO called The Young Pope, which starred Jude Law. This show, The Young Pope, with it being a limited TV series, they're going to show you a lot of different things in a short period of time. And it was filled with symbolisms, hidden meanings, deeper meanings, kind of like Barack Obama's scripted movie, Leave the World Behind. And once you know this show, The Young Pope, which also had a sequel series called The New Pope that came out on January 10th of 2020, just 5 years right before the first American Pope was elected, and reading this article here from slashfilm.com, a critically acclaimed HBO series predicted the first American Pope with chaotic results. The American Pope on the TV show comes from New York, and the actual American Pope comes from Chicago. Now, they don't know much about Pope Leo's views, but the Pope in the TV show, he was very controversial. It has been a while since I watched that series. Like I said, it came out back in 2020, and it finished in 2020 as well, so I don't know all the details. I was going to do another watch of Leave the World Behind and do another breakdown, but I think I might watch this series instead to see what they're trying to tell us about this new American Pope. Because the timing is just way too coincidental, and it seemed like this individual just came out of nowhere because the front runner to be the next Pope was Pietro Parolin. So they picked this guy to be the next Pope for a specific reason. And it might be something as simple as a lot of people were worried about that final Pope prophecy that the final Pope would be Peter the Roman. It should also be noted that in the show, the American that was elected Pope also came out of nowhere. There were frontrunners who were way more popular who were thought to be the next Pope, but they elected the American for whatever reason. Now, you may be saying that's just a stretcher, that's just a reacher, one show just happened to accurately predict that the next Pope would be American.